right, hi everybody. I guess I did not know there was a theme tonight, so the only thing I'll say is that the last 4 weeks has really helped wake me up to what my responsibilities are regarding my mother for the rest of her life. That's it for the topic. I came to pretty much vent about the last 4 weeks of my life because, quite frankly, you guys are a lot cheaper than a therapist. Let me kind of do what Dewey did and start at the end of the story, or at least where we are today. And that is that my mother is in rehab at the Jewish home in Brighton, cardiac rehab for a heart valve replacement procedure that went great. She's 85 years old, and physically there's nothing wrong with her. Mentally, she's gone from early dementia to sort of a mid-dementia range, and is at the point now where she is in full fighting mode that she is going back home to Peekskill, New York to live alone in a 3-floor house. She's 85 years old. This is about an hour north of New York City. For anybody who doesn't know where Peekskill is, 5 hours away from family, and obviously impractical for reasons that I will get into later on in the story. So that's where my mother is today. Okay? Where was she 4 weeks ago? Well, when I write my book about my mother someday, this chapter will be called Where's Waldo? Because my mother is a very private person, and she does not want to worry her son that she might need some help at age 85. So she apparently had a neighbor drive herself to a hospital because she had swollen legs filled with water and she was feeling some pain. So she goes apparently to the hospital and she signs herself in with no next of kin and nobody to contact in case of an emergency, 5 hours away from you, mind you. And they saw no reason to keep her cell phone charged, of course. Why would this old lady who has nobody to talk to need a cell phone? So I'm looking for her on Wednesday, and Thursday, and Friday. And finally on Saturday, I call her next door neighbor, and they knock on the door, and all of a sudden the neighbor comes back, oh, no, Faith's not there. No, I took her to the hospital on Wednesday. And apparently she told the neighbor she was going to call me, and she of course never did. She wanted to worry me, and she's also of course very worried that I'm going to move her to Rochester and take her away from her life of heaven, living alone at age 85, and I will tell you about how scared she is and how she is in a few minutes. So I call the hospital, which was not the hospital I would have thought that anybody I knew would have taken them to, and they transfer me up to the unit, and they say, hello, ICU. I'm like, ICU? Excuse me, what's my mother doing in ICU? I'm sorry, who's your mother, sir? My mother is Faith Lax. I'm sorry, Mrs. Lax has no children. She has no next of kin, and no one contacted me. I said, would you tell my mother right now that her son is on the phone? And they said, I'm sorry, Mrs. Lax is not responsive. What? I'm like, all right, I'm sorry, sir, we can't tell you anything. I said, listen, let me just ask you this hypothetically. If this were your mother in that room, it was about 11 o'clock at night on Saturday, would you get in your car right now and drive 5 hours to see her? Absolutely, sir. In my car I go, and it turns out that the water moved to her lungs. She was drowning on her own fluid. They had her intubated. They suctioned it out. She remembers none of this. Now, the dementia is getting a little bit worse, but what the people in the healthcare area do not realize is that my mother has been suffering from extreme paranoia her entire life. Everybody's watching her. Everybody's out to get her. And this is not new. And I understand it and how to deal with it. And in particular, she has a big fear of repairmen. No repairman is coming into my house. Why? They have tattoos, they got them in jail, and they learn how to do this stuff in prison. I'm not kidding. Okay? Like I said, I'm going to write a book. It's going to be part serious and part humorous because my mother, and this chapter is going to be the Where's Waldo chapter. This one is an inkling of suspicion. Because when the nurse at the hospital with the tattoo tried to give her the hospital, I told her, no way, that's not going to happen. No, there's no way with an uncovered tattoo. My mother's going to freak out. She, of course, did. Well, my mother's afraid of repairmen. So the roofer that she should have called 2 years ago when her roof started to leak, she never called. And what started out as a leak became a gusher. And now her ceiling in her bedroom is covered in black mold. It is so toxic in there I can't even begin to describe it. And she lets nobody in the house. I had no reason to visit. She'd come here. The ceiling is collapsed. The floor is about to collapse. Everything is saturated in mold. Goes down all 3 floors of the house. And I've told the estimate for remediation and repairing the house and rebuilding it is probably more than the cost that it's worth. Okay? And my mother is now been transferred up here to Strong because she needed the surgery up here. Very paranoid that he's going to make me stay up here and not let me go back to my house. Now, she doesn't understand what black mold is. She has no idea what this concept is that she's living in. And she exhibits all the symptoms, the rapid memory loss and so on. And I got a fight on my hands the next couple of weeks as to what's going, and I see that I'm out of time here. All I can tell you is that physically she's doing great. In the next 2 weeks, I'm going to have the fight of my life on my hands, and I'll come back and update you. And hopefully the next time you can choose the topic, siblings, because there's one word you did not hear me mention in this entire 5 minutes. Sister! Thank you.